Well, welcome everybody. This is the 2021 Wolfpack Warrior Workshop. We've got some really special guests coming up. This panel is called Building a Coalition That Will Win. The goal of Wolfpack is to get an amendment to the US Constitution that deals with the corruption of big money in politics. It's obviously a pretty lofty goal, and we're going to need a pretty massive coalition to actually get that done. So that's what this discussion is about. I don't know if, three better people to have this discussion, honestly, in the movement out there. We've got Larry Lessig is going to be hosting this panel. He is a professor of law at Harvard. He's also the author of Republic Lost, founder of New Hampshire Rebellion, founder of Mayday PAC, those groups dealing with getting money out of politics, founder of Creative Commons, and really just known as the godfather of the Get Money Out of Politics movement, and a close friend and ally of Wolfpack, and joins these workshops pretty much every year at this point, Larry, and will travel around the country for us and testify at committee hearings, and has just been an amazing ally for us throughout the years. So Larry, we're thrilled to have you here, as always. And we also, for the first time, have Nina Turner joining us. We're super excited about that. She's just an absolute rock star in the movement to get money out of politics, democracy reform movement, and really is just one of the most motivating speakers, I think, anywhere in the country, probably the world, honestly. Nina, she's been on the city council. She's been state senator in Ohio. She's been the president of Our Revolution, ran for Congress recently. It is a shame that she's not in Congress, but still out here in the fight with us. So that's maybe even better, Nina. And she's also a podcast host. And I wish I had the picture, but I'll just tell a super quick story about Nina and Larry. What was it, 5 years ago? We were in New Orleans, and it's one of the most memorable stories of my entire life, actually. We were at, I think it was a Represent Us conference or something, and we had lunch on one part of town, and we didn't know it, but there was the parade started while we were having lunch. So we actually got stuck on the wrong side of town and literally couldn't get back. It was pouring rain. Jeff Clements was there, Nina, Larry. It was pretty funny. I was responsible for calling Ubers, but they couldn't get across the street because the parade was there. You couldn't cross it. It was actually, it's funny to laugh about. It was kind of miserable at the moment at the time. It lasted like 45 minutes. I was calling Ubers. They couldn't get across the parade. Jake was getting mad at me, starting to blame me. It was a real thing, right? So anyway, that was one of my good memories with you, Nina. And then of course we have Jim Rubens, who is another rock star in the movement. He's a former Republican state senator in New Hampshire. He's a businessman. He's also on the board of American Promise, a fellow ally in the movement. And he constantly travels all over the country fighting for the 28th Amendment. And will also go and testify at hearings for us, and go to state houses when we need him. And in fact, was just doing that halfway across the country, all the way over in California, just a couple of days ago with Sam Fieldman, our esteemed counsel for Wolfpack here. So we've got just an amazing three people here to have this discussion. So I'm really honored to have you all be part of this workshop this year. And I'm gonna leave, but Larry, I'm gonna let you kind of take it away. You know what the theme is. So it's pretty free form, and really looking forward to seeing what you all have to say. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Mike, and thanks to Nina and Jim for joining this conversation. So I want to start it off by putting it a little bit perspective. It was 10 years ago at Netroots Nation that Cenk told the assembled millions, I'm sure, I wasn't actually there, that there's only one issue in the country today, and that issue was campaign finance reform. And what's striking about those words is how quaint they seem now. Remembering the days when what really was the issue was campaign finance reform. And it's astonishing to recognize that in the 10 years since, everything, every single dimension of democracy has gotten worse. In the 10 years since, we've seen the effects of the radical gerrymandering that was effected in 2010, that both empowered state legislatures to begin to impose restrictions on the capacity of people to vote that made it so that their political opponents could no longer compete equally with them in the races. We saw the effect of gerrymandering in Congress, which radically enhanced the power of, in some states, a minority, to make it so that they could exercise power beyond what the Democratic mandate was. It was just after that we began to see the extraordinary effects of super PACs, which of course were created in 2010, but really hadn't had their real significance. In 2020, 10 super PACs account for 54% of the spending that was in that election cycle. In 2010, nobody imagined state legislatures openly considering the idea of empowering their legislature to override the popular vote of the people of their state for president. But right now, those bills are floating all across this country in state legislatures. And of course, in 2010, we had not yet seen the extraordinary poison of the filibuster deployed in the extreme way that Mitch McConnell now wants to deploy it. So that in the current version of the filibuster, which gets triggered whenever any senator wants a filibuster, that filibuster means that 21 states representing just 21% of America, if you take the 21 states that supported Donald Trump by at least 10 points, those 21 smallest states representing 42 votes to block anything in the United States Senate represent 21% of our country. So we have moved from a movement that was confronting a critical problem of campaign finance reform to a movement that is confronting the problem of democracy in general. So when I think of what Cenk said, I think we need to update this. think we need to say there is one issue in America today, one issue. And that one issue is democracy, representative democracy. And the question we need to ask is whether representative democracy is going to work in America anymore, whether it's going to give the majority the ability to set the direction for America. And that is a crisis in our country right now, as all of us see, and as we reflect on what's happened over the past year. Now, what's exciting to me about this panel, this conversation with real politicians who have actually been on the road and persuading people to what the important issues are, is trying to get a sense of whether framing a common push on the framework of democracy is possible. You know, I got to say today was not an optimistic day for me. And I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do my job in this panel discussion, which is to make us hopeful and to make us think that there's a way to go forward, because we live in a country where we can't even agree about a pandemic, which has killed more people than all of the people who were killed in service in World War II. We can't even agree about that. And so when we live in that sort of country right now, which is fueled by an infrastructure of media that profits from the politics of hate, is it possible for us to imagine focusing America on this core, number one, only, in my view, issue, democracy? So Nina and Jim, you've done this. You've run campaigns where you've seen people face to face, and you've seen what works and what doesn't work. So I'd love you to open this conversation up by helping us to believe what today I'm not sure I believe, that it is possible to build, or if it's not, like, what do we have to do to get there? So Nina, why don't we start with you?
Thanks so much, and it's a pleasure to join Wolfpack and to be with you and Jim. And I just want to thank Mike for walking me down memory lane. I had on heels that day, which is contrary to how I usually roll, because when you are out and about on campaigns, yeah, you got to be really ready. So Mike, thank you. Gave me a little chuckle. I think, Larry, it is possible. It's always possible. We cannot give up on the possibility, but what we have to marry with that possibility is the inordinate amount of work that is going to take. We have to face this question, the issue of democracy, representative democracy, and will it last? Can it stand? Can it endure? with the notion, those of us who are on this particular battlefield, we got to go into this work knowing that it is going to be inordinately difficult, especially given the temperature that is in our country right now. I would argue that where we are right now is really just where we have always been. It's just bubbled to the surface that Mr. Trump, as president of the United States of America for 4 years that seem longer than four, they were intense years, is really just a mirror reflecting back at us as a nation, because we have so much unfinished business. And it wasn't just one 4-year term that got us here. I'm old enough to remember 2010. I was in the Ohio legislature at the time when lines were drawn in Ohio. They were gerrymandered lines, gerrymandered to hell lines. I was also, I testified in a case that the ACLU led, also with the A. Philip Randolph organization here in the state of Ohio, some other extraordinary people who are on the front lines of this work. And I voted against that map for the very reasons that you outlaid, Professor, is because I knew that the map was wrong to identify 12 seats that would almost always go to Republicans no matter what, and 4 seats to Democrats no matter what the voters wanted. They would always have those 4 seats. And when you combine that, it was not a reflection at the time of the Ohio electorate, but the using of the pen in such a, or now computer technology programming in such a vicious way is a problem we must confront. So yes, can we get there? The great President Nelson Mandela once said, it always seems impossible until it is done. I can think of other things that we have conquered as a nation, albeit maybe not as deep as we need to, still have some residuals when I think about racism, anti-Blackness, but we have conquered some pretty horrible things in our nation's history. And I believe that we can conquer this. We have to marry the real lived experience. We have to connect. What does it mean to live in a representative democracy with wages? What does it mean to live in a representative democracy with Roe v. Wade on the line? What does it mean to live in a representative democracy when you can't even get folks to agree that people deserve paid family leave in this country and healthcare, and et cetera, et cetera? So I think our framing and our message for the people who don't do this on the regular basis, where this is not their number one assignment, in order for us to awaken in them the fierce urgency of now, to quote the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is we have to connect this work to their real lived experience. Is it possible? Absolutely. Will it be extraordinarily hard? Absolutely.
So that's hopeful, but I want to connect that last part to the question of this panel, which is what a coalition looks like. Because when I hear you, Nina, talk about the important issues we've got to get people to recognize, I resonate with those issues. Those are the issues I believe in as well. Every single one of the causes you pushed, I would be pushing right next to you. But if we're talking about a coalition that reaches across to people who don't necessarily share our politics, does that strategy work? Is that strategy possible? Do we have to do this as 2 separate movements, or can we do it as one movement? So Jim, that's the hard question that I want to put to you, because you've been in this fight as a Republican, and I've seen you on the road, I've seen you pushing the issue, but pushing it in a context where it doesn't come naturally. So how do you think we do it as a coalition? Is it something we do together, or is it something we do moving separately?
It has to be done together. We've got to understand, those of us who have different priorities, issues, policy priorities, that there's a bigger issue here. And the issue is our system is failing us. And whether you want bigger government or smaller government, or more subsidies for kids or less, you're going to have to put that aside temporarily to understand that we've got a failing government that's not serving us, and that unites us. And I want to give you, and to start, and this is the hopeful stuff, I'm going to give you 3 examples, 2 of them extremely recent, where coalition building across the ideological chasm worked. One, very briefly, my own experience. I led something called the Granite State Coalition Against Expanded Gambling in the mostly in the 90s and the aughts. And for 10 years running, we defeated an organization from Las Vegas that targeted New Hampshire, and they wanted to have gambling casinos in our state. And they hired every lobbyist in New Hampshire, and we defeated them 10 years running, even though they outspent us radically. And we did so. I led this operation, and we got people into the room to work together who hated each other or thought they hated each other, because we got people who are cornerstone policy research, pro-family, pro-life, with extremely left religious leaders who didn't think they could even sit in the same room, got down, and we won because we found a way to work together, because there was something bigger that united us. We didn't want these people coming into our state. Two exceptionally recent examples. Sam Fieldman, we just talked about this. Sam and I and all of the leaders of all but one of the organizations that are leading the movement to amend the Constitution in three ways. There's the campaign money corruption amenders, like myself for American Promise, and my organization, your organization, Wolfpack, the term limits folks, and the fiscal responsibility folks. All of the leaders, the organizations, got together along with ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, founded by the Koch brothers, and the Reason Foundation, an extremely conservative libertarian organization, agreed to co-sponsor this operation that happened on Wednesday, Thursday, called the Academy of States 2 in San Diego, in conjunction with ALEC, and we agreed that we would not oppose one another's amendments. And there's an agreement statement that Mike has that he can stick up on the screen. And we signed on to this agreement, and we all cordially worked together to have this event. And here's amazing success number 3. So we each of the 6 major proposed amendment clusters, and again, in term limits, campaign fiscal responsibility, campaign finance, and fiscal responsibility, each pitched 6 different pitches. And Sam and I, on behalf of American Promise and Wolfpack, pitched a single proposal, and it went up for a vote, a straw poll vote. And the voters were elected state legislators, ALEC members. These are conservative Republican legislators. How do you think we did on the Wolfpack American Promise amendment to campaign money in elections? We got 67% of the vote. Amazing. This happened on Wednesday morning of this week. And it shows what you can do when we persuaded folks sitting there, the conservative legislatures. There are problems, there are systemic problems that block both of us. We have differing policy objections, but these systemic problems are so large that it has incapacitated our form of government. And we agree on that, maybe for different reasons, but we agree that we want the same amendment. That's remarkable. This can be done, and I'll get into when we have time for more detail about it's very important for us who are coalition building to do a few things. And the first we've got to do is step back, and if we want a coalition, understand there are people with very different ideologies, and we've got to figure out, where are we common? Where can we come together? And if we thrust things that we know they hate in their face as our leading lure, whether it be climate change or justice, criminal justice, or what have you, and if we lead with the issue that we know repulses, it's going to be harder.
So Nina, I mean, we've got exactly that difficulty when we think about the movement to get a convention to propose amendments to the Constitution. I support what Jim's talking about. I would go stronger. I would say that both sides, I think of it as a representational integrity movement and a fiscal integrity movement. And I'm on the representational integrity side. I think that's the most important thing, whether it's money in politics or vote suppression or gerrymandering, whatever it is, that is the issue we need to be pushing. But there are other people out there who think it's fiscal integrity. It's Congress's inability to do what it needs to do. But when you say, look, we need a process that allows both of these to work themselves out, that allows a proposal for a fiscal integrity amendment to be advanced to the state and a representational integrity amendment moved to the state. Immediately, you get people, Nina, on our side who say, hell no, we're not going to have anything to do with this balanced budget amendment movement. And indeed, some of the most articulate people on our side, Robert Reich, tells us that if we had a Article 5 convention, it would be the end of our Constitution. We would see immediately the right taking over and abolishing everything that makes everything that might be good in the traditions that we have. So when you experience that, because you've been right at the center of that type of conversation, when you experience that, what is your strategy for bringing people to see that we need to figure out how to move in a common direction, even if for, as Jim nicely put it, different reasons?
Yeah, but it starts with what centers us, what brings us together is that the system is not working. I mean, Jim made that point. That's it. The system is not working. Now, we all in the room, whether we are representative integrity or fiscal integrity people, what we do agree on, what brought us together in this room is that the system is not working. And then we just got to work it out from there and keep that as the foundational point. No matter where else we want to go, like we're not here to talk about the other stuff. We are here to talk about a system that does not work for either sides, That's it. And that's all. And we just keep weeding out that other stuff. The system doesn't work. The system doesn't work. So even if you want to argue it from a fiscal side, the system doesn't work. If you want to argue it from a representation side, the system doesn't work. Why are we here together? Because the damn system does not work.
But let me follow up with that. I mean, you've been on the front line of a diverse electorate in Ohio. And when you tell the diverse electorate in Ohio, the system doesn't work, does that get them more excited to rise up and do something about it? Or is that just as likely to give them a reason to stay home?
Not necessarily, because then what does that mean in material terms? And that's why in my opening remarks, I gave examples of what our side would care about, but I could give examples of what the other side may care about that are willing to come together in a room. You got to get down where people live. You know why it will not necessarily resonate? I mean, one city in the district that I serve, city of Cleveland, where I live, is the poorest big city in the United States of America. You think they really give a damn about representative integrity or fiscal integrity and democracy? And they know the system is not working because they live it every day. But for me to sit down across the table with somebody that's trying to figure out how to pay their rent or pay their car note or get their kids into childcare about an amendment to the Constitution or getting money out of politics, they think every politician is a damn liar with good reason, because guess what? The system doesn't work. But if I could draw them to the reasons why it doesn't work based on their lived experience and what their expectations are, then I could get them to listen. I enjoyed Jim's example. I want to give an example too of people who totally did not agree. And this was really about life and death in my state at the time. And many of the people joining us this evening probably remember when Tamir Rice was shot on a playground in Cleveland, Ohio. A 12-year-old black boy shot for playing with a toy gun. No questions asked. Less than 2 seconds, police on the scene. They shoot and kill this little boy. Emphasis on little boy. And Governor John Kasich, a Republican, governor, and I fought on many, many issues. That is an understatement. But what we understood, Governor and I got on the call. Governor, he wanted to know what's happening in Cleveland. I said, people are mad as hell. We got to do something about this. John Crawford III was shot, in another city, all on and on. It was just this thing swirling. He said, come and see me. I said, Governor, we got some power and we got to do something about it. This ain't about who's Republican, who's Democrat. I'm calling you as a black mama. I'm not calling you as a state senator. I'm calling you as a black mama who is in pain right now. And my heart aches also for Samaria Rice right now. And he said, come and see me. Now, two people who did not see eye to eye on anything got together. The governor did not put off this. He called in his team, long story less long, signed an executive order, created a task force on community and police relations, put elected officials in there, preachers, law enforcement was on there, business leaders, people from the right, people from the left, young people, seasoned people. All of that, we came together. And you know why we came in that room? Not to talk about who was pro-life or pro-choice, not to talk about who believed in universal health care and who didn't. We were called in that room together to deal with the crisis of community and police relations in the state of Ohio so the state would not explode. And he made yours truly a co-chair, if you can believe that. So that is an example of how when you come into a room centered on why the hell we we are in the room and let all that other stuff fall away. We will live to fight another day on these other issues we don't agree on. But for this purpose, for this moment, for this time, we are in this room for these reasons.
So Jim, I want to make this a little uncomfortable for you, because what Nina is aspiring to, the idea of bringing people into the room focused on a common problem, the system is not working, is actually a conversation I think you easily could have had with your fellow Republicans 10 years ago. I think it's a conversation where the failure of democracy was not a partisan problem. I mean, we had partisan fights about money in politics, but if you said democracy is failing, people would agree that's a problem. I think one of the challenges you face in your party is that what we see as a bug, they see as a feature. What we see as a failure of a system to bring together people in a representative way, they see as what's necessary to make it possible for them to continue to have relevance in the political process. So when you experience this as a Republican, engaging with Republicans who would openly defend, like, the RNC's lawyer before the Supreme Court, openly defending vote suppression techniques. Why? Because it makes it easier for Republicans to win. When you in your party are confronting people who believe in the anti-democratic movement, how do you bring them to a place where they recognize that the long-term can't accept an anti-democratic reality?
Coming at a Republican and conservative from that perspective is not going to get anywhere. We've got hardened partisanship in the United States. So again, for the purpose of this Warrior Workshop, we're about getting an amendment to the United States Constitution passed. In short, and Sam and I agreed on this, that would restore to Congress and to the several states powers to set reasonable limits on campaign money. That's our objective. We have so how does that conversation comfortably get to conservatives? What are conservatives passionate about? Conservatives, let's start with something conservative, and you got to start there. Start with something conservatives are really passionate about. And this passion causes that kind of perturbation, Larry, that you're describing there. When people grasp at any means of power, people are concerned about the loss of reserve currency status of the US dollar. Now that sounds very abstruse, but if you're a conservative who follows this stuff, you're a small business person and you're worried about inflation and you buy imported products to manufacture parts, et cetera, trying to hire people, you are concerned about the real prospect of the United States being forced to buy imports in Chinese currency. This is a conversation that may not happen a lot on the left, but this really concerns people on the right. How does that tie to our issue? I'll lead you there. So why would a conservative be concerned about campaign money? Because the process by which our currency is threatened to collapse and us buying our imports in Chinese currency, which is a serious national security problem, apart from other problems, is because we have a corrupt campaign money system, which is turning free market capitalism, which conservatives love, and I love the free market, because it's getting turned into crony capitalism, because you can go to Washington and you spend $1 and you can buy with that dollar in the form of campaign contributions and lobbying. You can buy regulatory favoritism, you can buy tax breaks, you can buy contracts, you can buy F-35 airplanes, which fail and suck trillions of dollars out of the world economy. And what that does, it gets Congress on both sides, forgive me, both sides love the spending. And when the taxpayers start revolting, which they do on the right, the Federal Reserve Board starts printing money. Now, I don't know if you think that sounds conspiratorial or not, but it's happening and people on the right are really worried about it. Now, why is this happening? Because of the corrupt campaign money system that has turned capitalists into crony capitalists who go to Washington to pervert our economy to help their company prosper. It's structural in the system. And I find, and we found on Wednesday morning when we took this straw poll vote among conservative Republican leaders, they see this connection and they see the need to fix the campaign money system. So Nina, this is coming at this issue, which leads to the same solution. from a completely different perspective. And it's very meaningful, and it creates as passionate a response as those that you work with.
Yeah,
And
but I
it's
mean,
your
I agree
work.
with you. It's important. Your victory at ALEC is important. The fact that 67% would have said that at ALEC is really important.
It's amazing.
What number of Republican senators in the United States Senate would say that?
That's a bigger problem, because there is a severe disconnect between conservative Republican state legislators and those who rise up to become members of the US Senate. And if you talk with individual state legislators, conservatives and liberals, right and left, there is an extreme distance between the federal government and state government. State government is still close to us. I can knock on the door, I can call up my state senator, and you probably can in Ohio, I know I can in New Hampshire, and I don't have to give someone a $5,000 or $10,000 contribution to get a voice conversation in the state level. And our state legislators recognize the importance of this proximity to the people. And so there is frustration between conservative Republicans at the state level and those conservative Republicans, Mitch McConnell et al., at the federal level. This is understood in both parties. We can work with this disjuncture between states and federal because our state legislators feel that Washington is becoming all powerful. Again, I'm talking from the conservative perspective here. And they're seeing federalism being decimated. They're seeing Washington coming in with big money. They're inserting the viewpoint of Mike Bloomberg. Forgive me for talking on the right again. Mike Bloomberg parachutes into our state of New Hampshire in 2018. He surgically, with detailed big data and his money, he flipped our state legislature from R to D in 1 year. One person did this. This frightens and pisses off people on the right. And when it goes in the opposite direction, it pisses off people on the left. I'm going on at length here, but again, it's a commonality. And recognize the distinction in worldview between state legislators and federal legislators.
Yeah, and so I think one more tag against my friend Robert Reich is to say, this is exactly why the Article 5 convention was put into the Constitution. It was when the people in the states recognized that the Congress itself was the problem. We needed a way around Congress to be able to get amendments on the table that might address this kind of problem in Congress. You and I would agree, I think, about that problem. And you know, let me. I mean, this is a point that I feel embarrassed about as a Democrat, and I want to know whether you do too. You know, we had an extraordinary opportunity this year. Nancy Pelosi did an extraordinary job, I think, in pushing the For the People Act, which would have addressed a wide range of these issues in a really effective way. Chuck Schumer took that issue up as well. But what was so terrifying to me was to see the absence of leadership at the presidential level, focusing America on the problem of this democracy, the failure of this democracy, the idea that the president would go in public 3 times defending the filibuster before he finally came around to saying, well, wait, actually, a system that guarantees that 20% of America can block everything that's going to happen is not such a great system. You know, so the question is, what do we need on our side to get this kind of leadership? I fear that, you know, we needed Churchill and we've got Chamberlain here at the top, appeasing the anti-democratic movement, not fighting it aggressively. And I just wonder what's it going to take to get our side to focus in the way that Jim is saying we need to be focused on this deep corruption that we've got to find a way to solve.
Well, we can't be afraid to use power, first of all. I mean, you don't go campaigning the way you did and stoking up fear. You know, what happened, Georgia? Georgians came through, you know, securing 2 Senate seats, one of which may be in jeopardy in 2022, if I might just dip into that water for a minute. You know, power is it doesn't last always. It's finite, and you have to use it when you have it. And so just as we are saying that we must get big money out of politics, if we're ever going to have any nice things or push forward anything that we believe in, the same happens is true about the filibuster too. And we can't worry about what the other side might do. Let's use the power while we have it. And definitely it was a total saying it was a misstep is quite being kind. It was a weakness to not come out strong and say we must not reform it, get rid of it. And we know historically that when the filibuster has been used, like 99.9% of the time, it is used to stand in the way of justice. Those are the facts. And because the Democrats have a control, and it doesn't matter how slight it is, they got control. You can't come back to the constituents in 2022 and say, I had all the levers of power, but I didn't have enough. What that doesn't compute where I come from. It just doesn't compute. You got the power. And even we remember in 2008 when they had even more power, they had more numbers in the Senate than they do right now. There were still excuses being made. So definitely embarrassment, total misstep, and a misuse, I might say, of power.
Okay, so on our side, when you talk to people about the idea of a convention, where do you see that possible agreement developing? I mean, do you think we're going to get a party that is open to this idea? Because right now, the most vocal people in our party, Russ Feingold and Rob Reich and many in Congress say it's the worst idea out there. I mean, what is it going to take on our side to get more people from the Democratic Party and on the left to recognize that we need to find a way around the corruption that blocks real reform in Congress, and this is maybe the only chance we have?
Yeah, well, partly things that like we're doing tonight with the Wolf Pack, bringing the three of us together, and other family and friends members who are here with us, and people who will see this later. We got to have a conversation. We can't run from it, and continue to parse out, Dr. Reich, why do you feel this way? And others who feel this way. And then we're having a family conversation about why we feel the way we feel. And let's try to come to some common ground if we can. But we really need, and an extension to that, because I won't say a but, and we need to continue to raise up a group of everyday citizens who connect the dots to this enough to get a movement afoot, particularly on this particular issue. I don't think it's just about us titled people or us people who are inside this and not truly, but understand it's part of our mission. Everybody has a different assignment, but we got to bring more people in on this, more everyday citizens in on what exactly is happening to block whatever they determine their pursuit to happiness is. We have to explain to them what are the variables blocking that. And this is certainly the number one variable that blocks every other thing that you care about, whether it's climate change or money, monetary policy, whatever it is. What is blocking that is the notion that in this country, politicians it is legal, as Unrig said, to buy and sell politicians in the United States of America. And by and large, they do not answer, the system itself does not answer to the will of the people. It answers to the owner donors. Whether the owner donors are on the left or the right, Republican or Democrat, or somewhere in the middle, the system answers by and large to the owner donors. And that is a threat to all of us.
So Jim, in the Republican movement or the Republican Party, is the idea of a convention a winning idea? Do you think most, I want to accept your separation of Washington from the rest. So most grassroots Republicans, are they fearful of a convention or are they supportive of the idea of a convention?
There is a debate going on within both parties as to whether this power put in the Constitution that you here at Wolfpack are working to use. There's fear mongering in both ideological wings that it's too dangerous to use, and if it on the left, if it's used, there's going to be a complete gutting of civil rights. On the right, that they're going to come in there and they're going to take away the Second Amendment. This is perhaps the most powerful systemic reform tool that people don't know about. This second means of amending the Constitution, very few people know about it because it's never been used before in the entire history of the United States. I'm not going to try to make this into a finger-pointing exercise, but people on the left, one of the main funders of the left and certain organizations I won't name here so as not to inflame things, have warned that if we use this power in the Constitution, there'll be a balanced budget amendment and the government will be cut and slashed, and there'll be no Social Security or welfare system anymore. And that threat is propounded by big money sources on the left. And on the right, there is organizations like the Phyllis Schlafly organization and the John Birchers, who have very significant sway in some of these rural conservative states, very significant sway, and are dissuading Republicans from at the state level from being willing to use this tool. So this is a problem on both sides. All of us who work with grassroots folks, remember, grassroots folks don't know the power of this tool in the Constitution. And if they knew this power was there, and it's accessible by contacting our state legislators who are approachable, this is a real ray of hope for both of us. So we both got to work on debunking the anti-systemic reform forces in both our parties.
Yeah, but I want to press you on this. I mean, do you think, I mean, I agree that most people don't know about it.
Yeah.
But do you think you start ahead? Do you think you start able to convince more than 50% of legislators in the states, Republicans, to consider this, or do you think it's a hard fight on the right, right now?
It's on both sides. We've seen rescissions on the right. I'm speaking a language here that we all know here on this call, but we've seen states going backwards on the call for an Article 5 state-led convention, going backward. Big fight in New Jersey right now. I don't have a report on what happened in the last couple of days there. There's a fight to remove the New Jersey call, which would wipe out both a call for a fiscal responsibility amendment and a campaign money integrity amendment.
Nina, what do you think it looks like on our side? Do you think it's
on the left?
No. I'm asking Nina now. On our side, Nina, do you think is this a winnable fight? I mean, do you think that most in the Democratic Party are going to see the usefulness of this as a technique?
I'm not sure. I mean, having to answer that right now today, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think that we've had the requisite deep conversations that are going to be necessary to pull back more and more layers. That is going to happen. That is going to have to happen first, in my opinion, before we can even move forward on this. I don't even think most in our party are even fixated on this, even if they are inside and they kind of understand where we're coming from and what we're talking about. We got to have more family meetings, and quickly. We ain't got a whole lot of time.
Yeah, I think, Jim, what you just said is really key to this. There is a strong movement on the right and the left that wants to block systematic reform. They want to block it for different reasons. But blocking things in Washington and blocking things in the political sphere is the easiest thing to do.
Yes, it is.
Saying no is the simplest thing. There's a million reasons to say no. And so it's going to take an extraordinary movement to rise up around that and to convince people that we can't go forward. And that's why, if you look at what's going on in authoritarian Europe right now, like the Czech Republic and in Hungary, Czech Republic just had an extraordinary success where all of these fractionated parties said, look, we're going to put all of our differences aside and we're going to realize there's one threat. And the one threat is the threat of authoritarian dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
And that same thing is happening in Hungary right now. I mean, people think Viktor Orban is untouchable, but I was just there a month ago. There's an extraordinary movement of people who believe that they can get parties to say, we're going to put everything else aside. And we're going to focus on this one problem. And I just wonder, are you going to invest? Do you think we should be investing right now in a movement that says there's just, like Cenk said 10 years ago, there's just one problem. There is just one issue. If we don't get this issue done, we're not going to get anything else done. So we need to get this issue done now. Do you think that are you going to invest in that as a plan or as a possibility? Let's start with Jim and then Nina.
I don't think right now a call to kumbaya is gonna get there, but I'm gonna challenge Wolfpack folks. You're perceived as being more on the left and on the right. Understand that on the right, the movement, the thrust of the use of Article 5 is around fiscal responsibility. I challenge Wolfpack to understand that because we're fighting people in both who want to discredit use of this tool in the Constitution, to bypass Congress to get this fixed, because Congress doesn't want to fix this thing, to work with the fiscal responsibility amendment folks, because you have a similar joint objective, which is defeat disparagement of this tool in the Constitution. The fiscal responsibility folks think they're at 33 of the 34 necessary states to get there. The argument and the reason that Wolfpack might want to support those folks might be across the finish line and discredit these people who want to take the use of this tool out of the hands of state legislatures and the public, because it might get used. And we might have a fiscal responsibility amendment, which will pave the way for the next wave of amending, which should very well be and will likely be a campaign integrity amendment. And I want to also provide solace for people on the left who are worried about fiscal responsibility. As we say, all of us say, it takes 38 states to pass anything. All the delegates at such a convention like this understand there has to be massive public support for any amendment to have any chance of viability. And I know the wiser heads in the fiscal responsibility movement, and there are extremely wise heads which will craft, and I believe it will come through an amending convention of the states, a very sober, very acceptable approach to saving the American dollar and keeping us from buying our imports in Chinese currency. There'll be a sober, very acceptable approach. So I'm challenging Wolfpack folks, really stretch yourself to get to that long-term goal. We've got to work together.
Okay, Jim, so I love you, but I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree strongly here. Because the scenario that says we're going to have a convention that is perceived by the world to be a right-wing convention that proposes amendments. I mean, you and I agree that's not what it is, but I'm just telling you what it's perceived to be.
You mean if the subject is fiscal responsibility?
Just fiscal responsibility
Right.
is a good way to kill the movement for Article 5 conventions.
Yeah.
I think what we need to do is to get people on your side to stretch, to say, look, okay, we need to have a convention around fiscal responsibility. I'd be willing to say contingent. We need to have a fiscal responsibility convention. We need to have a representational responsibility convention. We need both of those, whether it's the same convention or two, but you can't present to the American people that the right is going to have a chance to amend the Constitution, but the left has to wait and see what happens down the road. That's dead on arrival.
If you don't want to wait, then get to 33. Get the campaign.
But you were just saying that the Wolfpack people need to be more understanding of the right. I'm saying the right needs to be more understanding of the Wolfpack people. Because they need to be more willing to say, yes, we need to have the campaign money amendment part of this conversation too. And I think if you began to see that, we could build the common ground that I think Nina is talking about.
Right,
what do you think about this ordering question?
I was out at the ALEC convention for 3 solid. I'll be brief and let Nina chime in here. That case can be made to the people on the right that the amendment that you here at Wolfpack and American Promise is working on is just as important, and we can persuade people on the right to see it that way. And we both got to work with each other. And yeah, but one of the things we've agreed upon, sort of a rule of the road, you got to get to 34 on a single subject. There are not a lot of us in the movement who want an open convention where anything can come up, because that plays right into the hands of our opponents. So we've all agreed, and Mike, you put up our statement of agreement. The amending movement agrees. You got to get to 34 states on a named subject, named by 34 state legislatures, and that's our way of.
Okay, so we only have a couple minutes. Nina, I want to give you the last word on this.
Yeah, thanks. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, yeah, we got to have some understanding on both sides. Some stretching has to happen on both. It cannot be just one side. Stephen Covey once says, seek first to understand and then to be understood. Really, that is the pinnacle of this complex conversation that we're having, this complex movement. We got to get to the heart of the matter. both for grassroots, everyday people to understand this issue, and then also speaking that kind of language to the elected officials that we need to take action. I do believe ultimately the power is in the people's hands. Some people who are against this are not necessarily against it for nefarious reasons. Let me put that out there too. Some people are against this for sincere reasons, like a Dr. Robert Reich, who we all know very well and adore in this movement. So I want to say that. Whatever it is, though, we have to get there together, and we do have to understand. I'm going to end it the way that I started it, which is the central conundrum here is that we are all being messed over by a system that is not responsive to the greatest needs of the greatest number of people. Only a few people have the largest voice, have the largest impact, and we must change that if we are truly to be or to continue to call ourselves a representative democracy. It always seems impossible until it is done. I think that is a timeless message by the one and only President Nelson Mandela. When he spoke those words, they are just as true today as they ever were.
This has been a great conversation. I'm so grateful, Nina and Jim, that you would join us for this conversation. I'm so grateful for Wolfpack, not just for this conversation, but for all the work everybody is doing to keep this issue alive and to make it possible for us to imagine what I think Jim is very hopeful we're going to get to very soon. An agreement to have a convention that considers both the American Promise Wolfpack ideas, but also the ideas that the other sides here are supporting. So Wolfpack, thank you. Our time is up. I imagine we haven't put Mike to sleep, but if he's not asleep, maybe are you coming back, Mike? Or how would you like to handle this here? Yeah.
No, not asleep. There's a little fireworks in there. Always, can be expected with Jim Rubens on the line. I love it. Love the passion. All three of you have just an incredible
We're
passion.
all passionate about this. Can I just?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Now, Jeff, one more note of extreme optimism here. I believe if we get to one of these Article 5 Convention of the States to hammer out a proposed amendment, whether it be fiscal responsibility, term limits, or campaign integrity, you're going to have legislators from Wyoming and New York state level working together with extraordinary diligence and mutual respect to come up with something that they believe can get to 38 states. I have extraordinary confidence that that's within the American people.
All right. Well, thank you, Jim. Well, we love ending on optimism here. Absolutely. We'll take all you want to throw at us. So yeah, thanks again. Amazing panel. Nina, first time joining the Wolfpack workshop. We hope you'll be back at some point. And
anytime.
Yeah, we'll see you out there.
Anytime.
See you out there on the trail.
Yeah.
And Larry, of course, ending it right on time as a true professional. Nicely done. And Jim, thank you too, man, of course. So yeah, y'all have a good evening. Feel free to stick around. Cenk's gonna hop on now and interview a couple of our members, so that should be awesome too. So do we have Cenk on here yet?
As the voice in the background, no, I don't see it yet.
Well, he's texting me, so he's definitely trying. He should be on any second.